بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أسعد خلقه وخاتم رسله محمد صلى الله عليه وآله، ورضي الله عن المهاجرين والأنصار ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد. Another concept that Surah An-Nisa is giving us that is very important to comprehend and to understand and to be part of our Islamic worldview and our Islamic action and our Islamic understanding of life is the concept of Ardullah, the land of Allah, and that the land of Allah is vast. Ardullahi wasi'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this ayah says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَفَّاهُمْ مَلَائِكَةُ ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ. Those whom the angels take their souls back. التوفي is to take the soul back. ظَالِمِي أَنفُسِهِمْ, who are unfair to themselves. قَالُوا فِيمَ كُنْتُمْ. They ask them, where were you? What were you doing? قالوا كنا مستضعفين في الأرض. They say, we are oppressed in the land, or we were oppressed in the land. قالوا ألم تكن أرض الله واسعة فتهاجروا فيها. Then the angels blame them and tell them, wasn't the land of Allah vast so that you migrate to it? فتهاجروا فيها, to migrate in it, to walk in the land of Allah, walk away from a scene of oppression and a context of oppression. فأولئك مأواهم جهنم. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala punishes them with hellfire. Punishes them when? When the oppressed become immoral, when the oppressed become alliances with tyranny and with the enemy's occupation of Muslim land, and when the oppressed lose their faith because they are oppressed, they then will be unfair and unjust to themselves. And they will be the ones that the angels will come with and ask, why didn't you leave the state of oppression? Why didn't you go out in the land of Allah? And the land of Allah is vast. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made his land vast. And yes, in the current system of nation state, which is our current governance system in the world, we have borders and you cannot really leave a country unless you have the right paperwork in order to go in the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But luckily enough, we still have a system that is called seeking refuge or asylum in foreign lands. And of course, this is complicated and very political, but at least we still have that, so that people who feel oppressed in their own lands and feel that they cannot uphold the rules of Allah and the limits of the Sharia, or they are going to lose their lives or lose their children to immorality or to murder or oppression, or lose their dignity or lose their honor, then they have to leave, east or west. We're not just talking about in the Middle East or in the East where there are wars and so on. Of course, people could leave. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they have to defend themselves. Living in the vast land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is when there is no other way but to live in the vast land of Allah. But if there is a way of removing the people who removed you from your homes, وَأَخْرِجُوهُمْ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَخْرَجُوكُمْ. In the other ayah, Allah is saying, if you can push back and drive them out from where they drove you out. So they came in and drove you out of your homes and out of your land to a different part. If you can remove them from the lands that they took from you and you drive them out as they drove you out, and then this is the highest form of struggle for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is the highest reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if you cannot uphold your life, you're going to be killed, or you are going to lose your dignity or your children or whatever, east or west, then the vast land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the place where Muslims are supposed to be. We are not supposed to be stuck to a particular part of the world if the result is that you have no other way but to be part of the gang of the injustice that is happening, or no other way unless you lose your values and your morals and you cannot uphold your principles and you have to swim with the tide then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, no, do not swim with the tide. Either go against the tide and you have martyrdom, or you have the highest reward from Allah, or then leave and the land of Allah is vast. And then he says, إلا المستضعفين من الرجال والنساء والولدان لا يستطيعون حيلة ولا يهتدون سبيلا. Except those who are oppressed from men and women and children, not just women and children, but also men oppressed, and they don't have a way out. فأولئك عسى الله أن يعفو عنهم. They might say a word of untruth or injustice because they are under so much pressure, under threat for their lives. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, عسى Allah, Allah might يعفو عنهم, give them forgiveness. And when He says, subhanallah, in His book, He might forgive, then He will forgive, because He subhanahu wa ta'ala is the most forgiving, and He subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot be uh, subhanahu wa ta'ala asked to forgive and He doesn't forgive, and cannot be hoped to forgive and He doesn't forgive. He will forgive those who are under pressure, could have no way out and could not escape in the land of Allah. And then when you go out in the land of Allah, the next ayah says, وَمَنْ يَهَاجِرْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ يَجِدْ فِي الْأَرْضِ مُرَاغَمًا كَثِيرًا وَسَعَةً. And those who go out in the land of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fleeing oppression and fleeing systems of injustices, as many Muslims today and as we experienced in many ways, when you go out in the land of Allah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide for you, and you will find ways. Muraghaman is a way of making your enemies not happy about your leaving. Because when you leave for the sake of Allah, Allah will give you and make your enemies wish that they had killed you instead of letting you go. Muraghaman kathira. Muraghaman is yuraghim al-a'da, is to push back, is to have something that you will be proud of, that your enemies will have a problem with. Wasa'a, and vastness, and rizq, the rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, providence. And providence is not equal to money. You might not have wealth, but you have health, and you have, of course, your faith before your health, and then your health and your family and your happiness and your life, and you live well. You leave the land of oppression for the sake of Allah, and you flee the land of injustice in the vast land of Allah. Allah will give you providence, and Allah will give you health and wealth if He wishes, and children, and will give you what makes you live a good life, because this is a universal law. Allah promises those who go out in His vast land and يخرج ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله. If you do hijrah for the sake of Allah and His Messenger, there is no more hijrah from Mecca to Medina, or the hijrah with Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but there is hijrah in the land of Allah, and this ayah is the evidence of it. ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله. You migrate for the sake of Allah and His Messenger. ثم يدركه الموت فقد وقع أجره على الله. And if you die in that state while you are in the vast land of Allah, doing hijrah, doing migration, and going from place to place to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then your reward is only with Allah. And you can imagine, if your reward is with Allah, then it's a generous reward, and it's a continuous reward, and it's a merciful reward. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives mercy and gives rizq and providence and sa'ah and vastness for those who go out in His land, because they fear for the deen, for the religion to be compromised, or for themselves to be involved in injustices. And this is the rule of Islam, and this is part of the Islamic worldview. The Islamic worldview is not nationalistic to the extent of staying in your nation, even if you lose your faith or lose your principles. The Islamic worldview says, change the nation with a different nation, but keep your faith and keep your morality. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guidance and forgiveness, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala victory for the oppressed. قولوا قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.